Yo, what's up guys, welcome back to another video, and this is a reaction to what happened, I guess, the last night or the last few days. I think it stopped. It just suddenly stopped. They came to an agreement or something. It's a bit sketchy, I'm not gonna lie, because we were there thinking, oh, this crazy, like, this coup is gonna happen or whatever. And then it just sort of stopped. I guess, I think they came to an agreement or whatever. I've not seen the stuff this morning, so maybe it's changed. But this video came out 5 hours ago, so it's pretty as recent as possible. But it is how the Wagner military coup changed Russia forever. And yeah, I don't know, it's weird because I was going to do a reaction. I was thinking to do a reaction last night, but then I saw the stuff and I was like, well, is it just stopped then? I don't really understand what's going on anyway. Like, for example, the Wagner military. What I know, they're like a private military. Then that they were like working with the Russian military, but they aren't the same military, but they were fighting for the same beliefs or stuff, I think. Again, I might be wrong. So I was there thinking, what? So if they take control, and let's just say they captured Putin or whatever, which obviously is not going to happen, but say they did that, and then they put someone else in charge, would they have the same ideals, or would they change the ideals? Would it be what the West want? Would it be worse for the West? I don't know. I didn't really know that sort of perspective. Because when I initially saw it, I thought, well, this is good then. Putin's going to get out. But then at the same time, I don't know. I didn't really know the beliefs of the Wagner military, because I think they're not any better from what I've seen, but again, I could be wrong. I'm all ears. I'm probably going to see it in this video, but also if you know more than me, which I'm sure 99% of you will, let me know in the comments, because I'm going to be reading them, because I'm a lot more interested in things that are current, and this is as current as anything can be. Obviously you had the Titanic sub stuff of the last few days, which is interesting, seems the world, but this is also something that I thought was initially going to be a positive thing, but in the grand scheme of things, it seems like it's led to nothing. So, yeah, we're going to check this out. And, yeah, if you want to see some more of my reactions, links are in the description, but to my Patreon. But let's just check this out and see what is really going on.
What's happening in Russia right now isn't what you think it is. While it might seem like Wagner forces are just backing down and everything seems normal, this couldn't be any further from the truth.
So maybe it's not true then.
It all began on Saturday morning, June 24th, 2023. The head of the Wagner group, Prigozhin, announced that his army was en route to Moscow and ready to take over the Kremlin, with their private military tanks now surrounding and taking control of the Russian Defense Ministry in Rostov, all as the Wagner group calls for an armed revolution against the Russian government. And as crazy as it sounds, Russia could very well be on the brink of a gigantic change, as the Wagner chief has been seen casually meeting the commander of the Southern Military District, a military district that contains more than 25% of Russian military, whilst also having conversations with the deputy defense minister. Bear in mind, these are some of the most important, influential and senior members of the Russian military, and they are openly collaborating with Wagner in his revolution. And it's not just the inside Russian leaders that are now collaborating with the Wagner group. It's also being rumored that the CIA also convinced the Wagner chief that Putin planned to arrest him, promising support if Wagner topples Putin. All while the
CIA convinced. Oh god, the CIA are getting involved. Oh damn. So maybe he's gonna think it's like they're like a puppet of the US or something. That's not good. I don't want it to lead to something like that, because if Putin's feeling threatened from other countries, then oh no.
CIA actively feeds troops real-time intel on the Russian military. And what's even more insane was that in a leaked audio recording, Prigozhin claimed, quotes, "Where soldiers meet us, the Russian guards and military police wave their hands cheerfully," with the Wagner group claiming that Putin made the, quote, "wrong choice and that soon Russia will have a new president." So Putin quickly came out publicly, calling Prigozhin a traitor, adding that this is, quote, "a stab in the back of our country and our people."
Боевых товарищей, которые сражаются сейчас на фронте. Это удар в спину нашей стране и нашему народу.
Immediately, security measures have been strengthened throughout Moscow. All the most important facilities, state authorities, and transport infrastructure facilities have been taken under increased protection according to law enforcement agencies. And of course, it didn't take long after Putin's speech for Russian air support to reportedly bomb Wagner vehicles on the highway leading to Moscow, all while the Wagner group has
That's the thing, I've not seen any of the footage either, so this is all new to me.
shot down multiple Russian helicopters. And so
Wow.
it seemed like a full-on conflict is unfolding within the Russian nation. But then everything just stopped. From being on the brink of a revolution, the situation just suddenly went back to normal. But we all know that this is far from normal, and the consequences of this are catastrophic for Russia. And there's just so many reasons why. Reasons that haven't been spoken about by anyone. But to understand why, we need to look at why this actually happened. What's going on here? Is this just a psyop to cover Russia's biggest offensive in Ukraine? Is this the beginning of World War III? Is this a play by China and America, or is there really a revolution
China and America? But aren't China on Putin's side?
unfolding in Russia as I speak? Well, to understand which situation is really happening here, let's have a look at how this began. But before we continue, I want to tell you
Getting his money, to be fair, it's good because this video is definitely going to get demonetized. So
about our new
getting his money, let's just see the code. $11 a month. Where's the code? I'm just trying to get it so he can get his money, you know. There we go.
minds, knowing that everything is getting done even while you're sleeping. So use my code bloom.io/moon with the promo code moon25 to create your account and get 25% off today. Just click the link in the description below.
Links are in the description to this video where you can find this ad if you're interested, because this is literally 5 hours ago, so this is still running now.
The quote civil war began after Putin's order to neutralize the most combat-ready units in Russia for the sake of one or two traitors. However, of course, the full story is much deeper than this. With the slow unmoving offensive in Ukraine, things were getting heated within the Russian military. The Wagner group in particular was losing key, highly trained troops in Ukraine, all for a war that was only meant to last a few weeks.
We will now suffer serious losses. I am absolutely certain of it. Now we are certainly losing some Russian territory.
So the Wagner group chief Prigozhin was apparently in heated disagreements with the military leaders in charge of
He looks scary as hell.
the Ukraine offensive for almost all of 2023 and even parts of 2022. And as these disagreements grew, the Wagner chief announced a march for justice, leading to the beginning of what we're seeing right now.
Once a Putin ally, claims that he has left Ukraine at the head of a column of troops and has crossed into Russia in some sort of a challenge to the Russian defense minister, with whom he's been waging a war of words since the outset of the Russian invasion of Ukraine last year.
However, this begs the question, who actually is the Wagner group? Well, you've probably never heard of them before until now, and that's for a reason. The Wagner group is a private military network made up of ex-Russian special forces. Now, the origins remain largely a secret, as the soldiers are mostly anonymous and untraceable. However, the group is clearly led by Prigozhin, a Russian oligarch with close ties to Russian President Vladimir Putin. And the group is insanely powerful, with their operations spanning across mining companies, political institutions, and of course their private military force that acts as Prigozhin's frontline agents for Russia's global strategy, including diverting attention from the Russian government's activities. Although for years they've technically not been employed by the Russian government, as they're set up in Argentina as private
They're set up in Argentina.
military contractors like the Wagner Group are completely banned in Russia. However, of course, it seems like this is a big exception, as the Wagner Group is known for targeting countries and doing the bidding of the Russian government, but specifically operations that the Russian government doesn't want to be attached to.
So they're not good people then. That's what we know. They're not a positive change from what Russia already have, right?
Over the past decade, the group has expanded its reach to at least 4 continents, including Africa, where it's operated in at least 18 different countries, providing training to local militaries on how to conduct military strategies and counterinsurgency tactics. And these tactics are often brutal. One notable example of the Wagner Group's influence is in Mali, a country that has experienced 3 coups in just 9 years. You see, after France began withdrawing its army in 2021, Mali is believed to have contracted Wagner troops to help fight against rebels and secure power. And satellite imagery suggests that the group arrived quietly in December 2021 and swiftly built a very strong military presence. And since their arrival, the Wagner group was linked to violent incidents and even civilian deaths in Mali, using brutal torture techniques and anything possible to get the job done. However, they've also been involved in military interventions to support local dictators backed by Russia. For example, the Wagner group's relationship with Sudan is just an example of Russia expanding their global reach across Africa. The relationship began in 2017 and has continued under the country's military rule, as the Wagner group has been training Sudanese soldiers and operating gold plants in Sudan in exchange for weapons and training, all while giving Russia more strategic importance across the entire globe. But more importantly, the Wagner group has made the billionaire oligarch chief even more rich and powerful, allowing it to only recently become a legal entity with headquarters in St. Petersburg. And while Putin has denied links to Wagner group activity, Prigozhin has started speaking publicly about his role, because they became a key force for Russia and Ukraine. I mean, just in the first week of the Ukraine offensive, the Wagner group went through with 2 assassination attempts on the Ukraine President Zelensky. And as the group is made up of ex-Secret Service soldiers, they've been incredibly effective in pushing Russia's offensive. However, as the war went on, as grave mistakes were made, and the supposed few weeks it would take to annex Ukraine went on for a year and a half, the Wagner Group started to turn against the Russian military, and in particular against Putin himself. A key reason for this is that Russia has been under significant economic pressure for years, due to a whole bunch of factors including Western sanctions recently. I mean, the huge sanctions that were placed on Russia completely decimated the oligarchs' wealth, all while making it far harder for the country to attract foreign investment, and completely restricting its access to global financial markets. Now, initially the sanctions were placed after Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, and were expanded in response to other actions, including the country's alleged meddling in the 2016 US elections, and then the supposed poisoning of a former Tsar Sergei in the UK in 2018. However, of course, more recently, the huge sanctions that were imposed in response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine have completely crippled the economy, isolating Russia from the rest of the world economically. But this wasn't the only pressure within Russia. There have been a growing number of reports of bubbling discontent within the Russian military and broader society against Putin, with the big part of this coming from the ongoing war in Ukraine. And in particular, the chief of the Wagner Group has his own personal motivations for escalating this conflict with the Russian military. After months of bitter disagreements, it's become clear that he has a desire for greater power or influence within Russia. And now is the perfect time, with Russia's economy being crippled, its military strategy falling, and support from the CIA. It seems like this is all the perfect factors for Prakazan to expand his power. And as Prakazan has taken an increasingly public role in the war in Ukraine, his public support in wider Russian society has been growing at a faster rate than Putin, and this increased visibility and fame has probably boosted his own interest in taking on the Russian leadership. And so with all of these mounting pressures, it was undoubtedly clear Russia was becoming incredibly unstable at its core. And with bitter disagreements in military leadership worsening, the Ukraine war slowing down, Russia's economy shriveling, and someone was going to have to take on Putin. And so it wasn't really a surprise that the Wagner chief would be...
It's also crazy that to take on Putin, you have to do this sort of stuff, because otherwise you're not going to get any support, or you're going to get shut down by Putin, because they're just not going to allow someone to stand up next to him. So you've got to go to these extremes to give yourself a standing chance to go up against someone with that power. That's when you know there's no democracy at all.
Quick to order revenge on the Russian government, after claiming that a supposed huge number of his forces were killed by the Russian military, going so far as to accuse Russia of bombing his military sites in Ukraine. And despite the Russian defense minister claiming that there is no truth to this claim, this doesn't really matter. Prakazan is using all of these pressures and all of the growing hatred towards Putin as the perfect attempt to gain power, leading for him to say, quote, "Those who destroyed our guys today, who destroyed tens of thousands of lives of Russian soldiers, will be punished." With Igor Girkin, an ex-Russian Federal Security serviceman, stating, quote, "The military coup attempt has begun," leading to what we're witnessing today. The Wagner chief claimed, quote, "To avoid bloodshed, we are returning our convoys to bases." The following statement from Prakazan, the leader of Wagner Group and the orchestrator of the recent coup, claimed, "The intention was to disassemble PMC Wagner. On June 23rd, we stepped out for the March of Justice, and in one day we advanced nearly 200 kilometers from Moscow, without shedding any of our men's blood. Now the situation could escalate to bloodshed, and recognizing the potential for Russian blood to be spilled, we're reversing our convoys and heading back to our field camps as per the plan." Now this might have come after Belarusian President Lukashenko spent the day in negotiations with Prakazan, ultimately claiming credit for orchestrating a peace agreement between the two, with the full statement of Lukashenko's press services saying, quote, "Negotiations continued throughout the day. As a result, they came to agreements on the inadmissibility of unleashing a bloody massacre on the territory of Russia." Prakazan accepted the proposal of the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, to stop the movement of armed persons of the Wagner company in Russia and take further steps to de-escalate tensions. As Prakazan accepted Lukashenko's terms, agreeing to halt the advancement of his forces and retreat to his bases, ensuring the security of the Kremlin, and also Wagner's combatants. And so, just in a couple of hours, this attempted coup just faded away.
So weird. From what seemed like it was going to be a civil war, it's just suddenly stopped. Was it just like to make people think that there was something happening in Russia, whereas it was never actually going to go wrong? It's just trying to like deceive people.
With Prakazan and his forces preparing to return to their bases as normal, and not just from Moscow, but also from Rostov. Russian news outlets report that all criminal charges against Prakazan have been dismissed, and he, along with his forces, will be granted full immunity. And all movement restrictions imposed on vehicles in the Voronezh region, which was the site of earlier clashes during the coup, have now also been lifted. And in return, reports have come out that the Russian Ministry of Defense will go through major changes to stop the Wagner's advances, with Russian state media now claiming the current defense minister and army chief of general staff will be changed, even though Russia is still at war with Ukraine, and this will certainly harm the chain of command that is essential to their success in Ukraine. But this makes you think, is a private military contractor in charge of who runs the Russian government? Are they the ones now picking who works in the Ministry of Defense? Are they the ones now deciding Russia's military military strategy? Who actually has the power in Russia right now? Is the Wagner chief the de facto leader of Russia? And if so, how can Russia possibly continue with this? As this is the emergence of a multipolar Russia, and Putin won't take this lightly. While on the surface he claims that the Wagner group will be given security guarantees.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. He says this on that, but on the inside, you know, he's burning, and he's probably going to find some way to accidentally feed them the wrong food or something like that, where it's going to end up being an accident, or they're going to go missing or whatever, and nothing's going to be mentioned ever again. That's just that'll be a Putin masterclass, and that is what he is. You know, there's a lot of cases of that sort of stuff, so wouldn't be surprised if in a month's time we never hear of this. How do you say his name? The other guy's name again? Never hear of his name again.
Guarantees. This seems highly unlikely, as no one who's challenged Putin politically has ever survived today.
Is this the guy who was poisoned on the plane or something like that?
And no one has weakened Putin's position on the international stage and national stage quite as much as this, as one of the strongest militaries in the world was almost completely taken over. An unprecedented move that hasn't happened during Putin's reign. Even after the coup, Russian people have been chanting, and it seems like public support for them is at an all-time high. However, even with all of this chaos, it's very possible that Putin actually has a strategy here, as this has caused the Russian people to rally to end the war in Ukraine quickly, whilst also allowing Putin to recruit a list of all the traitors in his ranks, whilst also giving him the ability to enact martial law powers within Russia. All while Prigozhin has been able to leave Belarus, being given this promise by Putin himself, and so it makes you think there must be a reason for this. It's a classic Russian strategy, and that's why I believe as time goes by, the possibility of this being a psyop is more and more likely. As all the traitors will be expunged, Putin's control of Russia will be tightened, the Ukraine war will be fueled by a greater sense of urgency, inadvertently making Russia stronger, all while looking weaker to the outside world, which is a perfect political strategy that goes as far back as Sun Tzu's Art of War, to appear weak when you are strong, and strong when you are weak. All while this whole situation uncovers a bunch of CIA operatives working within Russia's ranks and playing the West like a fiddle. And so by having this coup happen, it has allowed Putin to purge all of the weaknesses within the military and government that may have been slowing down Russia's progress, all whilst possibly giving Putin more and more power. But for now, only time will tell.
It's probably just led to nothing changing, to be honest. It was all this big thing and then nothing's going to change. Maybe this was to see who would switch sides, who is loyal, who is not. It was to purge all. Yeah, maybe. This has to be one of the most propagandistic and confusing conflicts of all time. I have a feeling that we will never really know the truth of what's going on. It's so weird, man. Everyone on YouTube is sure eager to provide the answer for what actually happened. Well, there we go. I guess the real outcome is we don't know what really happened, but goddamn, from something that seemed like it was going to change the history of Russia to just like nothing happened within hours, it's pretty weird. But yeah, that's that. Let me know your thoughts on this. Maybe you know more about this than this video, and yeah, you can explain that in the comments. But yeah, until next time, like, subscribe.